Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza Ann Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Biz Bash podcast. Today we are on episode 41 and we are talking to Audrey Barley of Brush and Barley about what happens when you go viral. So this is a pretty fun story, especially because Audrey was part of our A to Z directory, still is part of our A to Z directory in our Facebook group through Biz Birthday Bash, and was going viral like basically in July 2019. And in the group, I think everyone was kind of watching to see what was happening. And I know at one point I was like, congrats, like Audrey, this is huge and so exciting and really crazy because it kind of happened overnight. And so obviously going viral isn't always just like the pure excitement that people always assume it is. There's a lot of different things that come with the territory, and we've kind of watched Audrey navigate some of that. So that being said, I want to give Audrey a moment to like say hello and introduce herself. And Audrey, tell us when you first started your creative journey and talk a little bit about how you ended up on this path specifically.
Well, it actually started pretty early, I should say. I remember immediately after high school, I kind of knew I wanted to do like an Etsy or something art related. And I actually started a page like right after I graduated for my acrylic signs. And it was just acrylic on canvas. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I was trying to sell those. But I didn't even make like a business name or anything. I think it was just like or my maiden name, Audrey Gilbreth, acrylic signs or something. And it was just a Facebook page. Didn't really get anywhere with it. And then when me and my husband got married, we moved from Arkansas to California because he was in the Marines at the time. So I knew I wanted to try it again. And that's when I officially started my Etsy. And it was called Just Peachy Artistry, because I really fling the name and I didn't even really think about it. And then we got pregnant, and then that really ensured that I wanted to stay home. And that kind of led into my lettering, calligraphy, and then in 2017 when I got the iPad Pro, and then it kind of just took off with the digital side from there.
Okay, perfect. So have you done, like, since you got the iPad, have you done mainly artwork on there specifically?
I did a lot more when I did logos. It was just logos, but I still did like watercolor, vows, house portraits, stuff. But then, I remember there was a shift at the beginning of this year where I kind of was leaning more into the digital only side rather than the physical painting and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then I wanted to ask you too, when did you first find us, like Biz Birthday Bash and the A to Z directory? Because obviously we love having you be a part of the community.
Oh gosh, I think it was the fall of last year, because I had been following you guys for a while before you announced the A to Z directory. I remember. I think I found you through Patricia Sheridan. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yes. I love Patricia.
I love her. Oh my gosh. She's like what I need to watch every day because she just makes me so happy. But
She's going to love this little shout out.
I know. She posted that she met Cami, and then I think I found Cami's page, and then that led to Biz Birthday Bash, and then all of that. And then I was just in love ever since. And then when you did the A to Z directory, I was like, this is exactly what I need, because at that stage, I really didn't know what I was wanting to do, and I didn't even know where to start on a lot of things that I wanted to do.
Okay, so that's awesome. So hopefully it helped you, or has helped you, bring some things to life that you had planned on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always on there. still.
I know.
That's
me
awesome. I know. But Cammy and I like use our own resource, which is absolutely hilarious and so funny. And for those of you listening who don't know what the A to Z directory is, it's basically our online resource for knowing where to print and produce like everything under the sun, from stationery cards to zipper bags. And do we even have like custom socks on there? Something crazy.
Yeah,
There's like
and we got shower curtains. I mean, literally everything, you guys. And I'm about to do a huge refresh because I've been like gathering lots of different vendors and researching them. So there's about to be an influx coming soon. Just a little heads up. But yeah, we're so excited that you're part of it too, Audrey. I remember when you posted in the Facebook group, you're like, one of my posts is going viral. I don't really know how to handle it. And I was like, went and looked, and literally you had like, went from like, I don't know what you started with, but it was like 100,000 followers in a week. It was insane. So it's going to be cool to hear more about that journey from your side of the story. So what was kind of the first indicator that this was actually happening? You're like, oh, like, what made you go post in the Facebook group? Like, oh, this is going viral.
Well, obviously it started with the Enneagram, and I solely made that because I was at like 3,200 followers, I think, and I had just gotten like 50 over the past week. So I was like, oh, this is a good time for an introduction to my page. So I was like, why don't I like do my Enneagram type as like an introduction rather than like a picture of me? And so I actually sat on this idea for like 2 weeks. So I posted the 6 Enneagram, which really isn't my number. I kind of rushed into it, but I mistyped hard. But I posted that, and then everyone was just like, oh, are you going to do a series? And at the moment I was kind of like, I don't know. I didn't trust myself because at that time I really didn't know a lot about the Enneagram. So I was like, oh, I don't know. But then that's when the followers started coming and liking it. So I was like, okay, I'll do one more number. And then it just went crazy. And my sweet husband was kind of like, he's a realist. So he was like, just don't get too excited. He's like, yeah, they're coming in. He's like, but it's going to plateau. And I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, if I could just get to 5,000, that would be cool. I hit 4,000, and I had this huge 4,000 giveaway because I was like, oh, 4,000, this is it. And then they just literally, I remember the second week it was happening, I was getting like 10,000 followers a day. Like if I looked at my account that morning, then that night it would be like an extra 10,000. And
oh my gosh,
I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, what?
It's still such a blur that I don't even know. I just remember when I hit 10,000, I was like, ooh, I get the swipe up. And then I was like, I'm content. And then it just kept coming, and it's still just, it blows my mind how it happened.
So was your phone just like, do you have notifications turned on Instagram? Because I don't, but if you did, it would just be like,
yeah, I never really liked it anyway because I didn't like knowing like kind of how I was like, I want to check it and then see how my page is doing before that. So I was so lucky that I didn't. My friend actually helps me manage my Instagram, and she had hers turned on for the first time, and I posted something without her knowing, and she said her phone just blew up, and she was like, you have to warn me. Because I don't know how
your phone like just dies instantly.
Yeah, I don't know how I could do notifications because I was checking it and they were just coming in. I couldn't even keep up, or with the message just alone.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the messages. Good Lord. Were those just rolling in as well? And being tagged in things, I'm assuming, and that's...
Yes, it was just, and most of them were like asking me Enneagram questions, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not like an expert. Like I literally just did my best research and then made a pretty thing out of it. Like now I feel like I'm a lot more educated about it, and I can have like a confident conversation about Enneagram. But at the time I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say to a lot of these people, because it was kind of like the imposter syndrome you all talked about. I was like, I just made these. I'm not educated a lot in that field, but people coming in just looked at my page and thought I was.
Yeah. I think that's something, it's just such a testament to like the way that social media works, is that everyone just assumes that like the person on that page is a pro or an expert, but like all of us are learning every day. And that's
Yeah.
how I feel sometimes too when I get certain questions about things. And I'm like, I literally don't know. Like, I don't do anything with handmade paper. Like, that's something that'll come up every once in a while. And people are like, how do you like print on handmade paper? And I'm like, well, if you look at my feed, there's like no handmade paper on it. So I have no idea.
But your follower count totally adds credibility to yourself, whether you realize it or not. So I'm sure people were like, okay, so she's got like 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
She posting about the Enneagram. She must know what's up. Maybe she can give me my type or whatever. Like, so you instantly become an Enneagram resource.
Most of these people didn't know that I was just at 3,000. Like, coming in, they're just like, oh, a big account talking about Enneagram. To them,
right? And that makes me want to ask too, like, do you think people who are following you still want Enneagram content specifically? Or do you think they're also like, are they interacting with all of the other things you've been sharing as well?
I definitely do think a lot of them love the Enneagram. And they're still waiting tooth and nail for me to finish the series I'm doing. But I do think a lot of them stayed for the mental health with Christianity part of my page. Okay. So they kind of like touched the base with Enneagram, but then they realized I put a lot more love in a lot of other graphics and work. But I do want to continue doing Enneagram, but I don't want it to ever become like the main attraction of my business.
Yes, right. Which
like,
is something that you
for it, but I want to also be true to what I want to do.
Right, because you basically like accidentally fell into that when you were like, oh, I'll do this for fun. And then it became this like huge thing.
I do love it now, and I love learning about it. And I love having conversations about it. So I have fallen in love with it. But after this series, I'm going to take a little break just so I'm also remotivated for it. So I can come to the Enneagram with a different perspective next time around.
Yeah. Okay, that totally makes sense. And Cammie and I were actually together like July 18th through 20th when we were recording our session for the Stationer Summit. And that was honestly when your following was like exploding. And so it was so fun because like every few hours we'd be like, oh my God, Audrey's at like, she got another 10,000 or she's like at 50 now. And like when you hit 100,000, we were just like freaking out.
I know. Even my husband was like, what's that girl at now? What's that girl at now? I'm like, go refresh, go look at her page. It was so fun.
I know. I had my husband's friends, like our friends messaging me. Like I have my husband's friend that he was in the military with. He kept messaging me when I was like at 70. He was like, get your YouTube now. He was like, do it. And he always pushed me to do it, but I was always like, oh, I don't know. And then he was like on my butt about it. He was like, your account's going. He's like, make it now.
So you do have a YouTube account now then, right?
I do. I'm still trying to figure out like scheduling because it's a lot of work figuring out. I haven't done video stuff in like since high school, I don't think, like editing. So it's kind of like, I have to relearn a lot.
Yeah, it's daunting. So with your social media obviously blowing up and starting a YouTube channel and getting all this going, how have you changed your strategy with your social media? I know you mentioned that you had someone helping. Did you have her helping you before, or did you hire her after you went viral?
It was after. She's always been a really good friend, but I didn't really need it until this past month, actually, when I just realized, I think like the high of it was coming down, and then like listing new things on Etsy. That's the biggest thing that I was struggling with that she helps me a lot, is listing like even just the littlest things on Etsy helps a lot because it's tedious to make sure that your listings are correct, your SEO is good. But then also to have a good Etsy, you want to keep it somewhat updated. So she's helped me a lot on that end because I think finally I was realizing how much was on my shoulders, and I probably couldn't do it all alone and do 100% like I'd want to.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, and it was interesting watching your shift too from that business perspective, because you were doing logo design. And I think like a weekend you were like, okay, hands up, like I'm not doing this anymore.
Well, yeah,
and so
like, in the beginning,
go ahead.
Logos were that was my bread and butter logos when I was at 3,000 because they are more tedious. But then when I started realizing that there was something bigger here and I could start making more things that I wanted to, I was like, I can't put that much stress on me when they don't make me that happy to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it totally makes sense, especially because it seemed like I remember that I had messaged you and replied to one of the stories you had done, with this, with the frustration with the logo design. And I said, well, what happens if you like increase the price a ton? And you were like, the money doesn't matter. I'm just like not interested in it, which is good that you understood that.
Yeah. And I just knew at that point, I was like, that could be energy that I could be putting somewhere else in this business if I really just didn't want to keep doing something that I was already burnt out on when I didn't have to, especially.
Yeah.
So then you started shifting more into products for Etsy, or is that how you decided to kind of take advantage of your newfound following?
Yeah, I realized that like I started making clip art and stuff before I was viral, and they did decent, and I really was striving to make because clip art's all over Etsy, like it's just everywhere, but I really wanted to have it be my style, and I just fell in love with making it. And then I've also recently fallen in love with making like tools for Procreate for other letterers or other iPad artists, and that's something too that I think is going to be a big part of my business, is helping other people that may want to get into iPad lettering or iPad art and so forth. So I think that's kind of where my Etsy has shifted to pretty much all digital, but it's been good so far.
So did you actually notice, I'm always curious when people go viral, if they actually notice like that affect their income at all? If it's like, if it actually translates over to sales, or if it's just like an inflated number where it's just like, oh, now I have a ton of followers that I can speak to, but are they actually like the people, does that make sense? Are they actually like the type of people who are going to come buy from you? What kind of insights can you add there?
Well, that's what I was kind of trying to get a feel for too. But well, when I started offering the Enneagram prints on my Etsy, and then I offered the customized portrait, that kind of blew up. But I think that also helped like bring people to my Etsy and then see all the other things I had. But I've actually, in my scenario, I have been blessed where it has changed a lot in the financial aspect. And we've been able to, my husband was able to quit his job before he deploys so he could be home this next few months, just so I can solely focus on it. But I do think a big part of it is you finding the right audience. And I do think a majority of my audience is either people that love the Enneagram, or they're also iPad letterers, or they're striving to be calligraphers or digitally. So they kind of look for me to resources, if that makes sense. But I definitely think it is because that's my following. I don't think if I had a following of just a bunch of random people that didn't have any interest in that, I don't think it would have translated over to more income, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense a lot. And I love what you've been doing with all of those downloads. I mean, that's the best way you can go about it. Let's be real, like not dealing with like a physical item that people will like purchase those little like color packs. I've been meaning to like purchase some of those, by the way, so I can use them in Procreate, like your cute little like your color palettes and stuff. Those are like so fun.
Able to pick colors that make me happy, and then it's just, and like you said, they don't have to be priced a lot because they're digital. So a little, like if somebody just buys a bunch of those, that adds up, and then there's nothing else I have to do on my end. And that's kind of led me to that too, because at this stage I'm kind of like, until I figure out really what the next step is, digital has definitely helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's great. So talk about too, like, what was one of the hardest and like most unexpected things about going viral?
I think the hardest thing for me is, well, I have anxiety, first of all, like talking to people and getting on my stories. But this kind of pushed me to it, that I'm grateful for, but also trying to balance between, I remember Cammie said something in the group where she was saying, remember these people, you don't owe them anything, like the messages they're sending you. And I think that was one of the hardest things, is I was so overwhelmed by the messages of people just demanding, and then big pet peeves of mine of how people like talk to me or talk down to me. Like, I think people look at me, they don't mean to, but I think the bigger following I got, I'm not looked at as a person. So like sometimes the messages I get are like repeat questions, but like the way I'm talked to is kind of hard on my end, because I want to have a connection with people. I want to talk to you. But it makes it hard when I feel that vibe that people think I'm just this brand and I'm not in it, really behind it. Mm-hmm. So that was hard, and it still gets overwhelming with messages and stuff. But other than that, I am grateful because it has made me get out of my comfort zone more. But also having a lot of people look at you, it depends on the day. Some days I'm okay, and then some days I'm just like, I can't be on my phone at all because it's just too much.
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine that would be super overwhelming to jump on every time and have like 50 DMs waiting for you. Like, I can only handle like 3.
Yeah, I have to let them sit until I'm like physically and mentally ready, prepared to like give you a answer. So sometimes I have to let them sit all day because I'm like, I can't reply to you right now and give you the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, I'd probably let them sit for like 2 weeks. I'd be like, I don't have time. That'd be so overwhelming. Oh my goodness. Like, I can't even imagine, I guess. And then also I would be sad that I would miss notifications from people I actually cared about. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's like, something that, like, I'll see them in the comments. I'm like, oh, hi, you're an OG. I'm sorry. That part gets me too.
Yeah, because the notifications like go so fast sometimes. So I can't imagine what the amount of followers, what it's like when you post something. It just be like, it's like basically just setting off a firework, like just setting it down and be like, all right, it's gonna blow up, but I'm just gonna walk away and see what happens.
That's how it feels, really.
One thing I love about your account, though, Audrey, is that you have such a cohesive look and feel to it. And I feel like you've just gotten even more branded as you've gone viral. You've just like really honed in on those colors. Do you ever feel boxed in by that? Or do you have any tips for people who want to make their Instagram more cohesive?
This is actually, I really take that as a compliment because I've struggled with this I think you're right. Like, I'm finally at a place where I'm like decently happy with it because it was hard, especially if you scroll back. Like, I did not know what I was doing with my feed or how making it cohesive, but I've always had a love for like the dark, moody colors. And I don't know if I was scared to do them because like when I first started Instagram, it was like bright and airy and all those feeds just looked really pretty. So I think it was this year when I finally was like, I'm gonna play around with the color palettes I like. I think the biggest thing is just play around with what you have. And like, I love your, the copycat episode you guys have, because that's what I tell people now is like, stay away from Pinterest. Don't even like look at it when you're trying to create something new. Just sit down and make something that makes your heart happy. And then you can see what goes off of that rather than, oh, I like this person's drawing, let me make it in my own eyes, because then that can easily turn into copying. And then you may not even know if you really love that or if you're just doing that because you see that's the trend.
Yeah, I mean, even now the colors on your feed are kind of trending. I know it's not like you're like following the trend, but those are just the colors that are trending right now. So you're like literally right on point. But you've really just done such a great job keeping it cohesive. That's something I struggle with. Freaking Instagram, jeez Louise. But anyway, yeah, that's a great tip. Is just to kind of like follow your own heart, and it kind of just works itself out. It seems like.
Yeah, I know it sounds cliche, and I hate when like I say that to people because I'm like, it sounds so cliche, but it's really like what you have to do. And I think it is easier for me because it's all digital, because I remember when I did do paintings and physical, it's hard. I think it's harder to make it look cohesive when you're doing more like physical items, because you just have to make sure everything's perfect, every picture, and that it flows well. Rather than digital, I'm able to go and look at my last few posts and see, okay, what color would go here well, and so forth.
Right. So are you doing solely digital now?
I try to. I have been missing like doing some watercolor, and like I'm doing the ornaments now with acrylic just because I've had that like craving to do so. So I'd like to somehow see if that fits back in my business. I just have to figure out where.
Right. It's all kind of like a big puzzle and like a balancing act.
It is.
Do you are you utilizing any sort of like planning app for Instagram at this point, or are you just still kind of like winging it?
I have one. I forgot the name. I think it's like Plano or something.
Okay.
And
there's Planoli. It's not that by any chance, is it?
That's it.
Okay, and Planoli.
Yes, and you can post to see if something looks good there. I've used that a few times, but it's been hard for me to make myself use it. Like I'll completely forget about it, and then I kind of just hope for the best that it's going to look good, so I just forget about it. But I have done that a few times, especially if I'm posting like a picture of a physical product. So I want to make sure that it like flows with everything else, since a lot of my page is graphics.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that is nice too, because you can kind of go off of like the color palettes that you already have created in Procreate, like what we talked about before. And like, as long as you're using those over and over, I think like, and when I've heard other people talk about Instagram strategy, it's like you pick like the 5 things you're going to post about the most, and you pick your like common colors that all of those posts are going to share, and you go from there. And Cami, you're way too hard on yourself because your feed's like adorable. She always is like, thank you. You're always so worried about that, but it looks really good.
It really stresses me out. I don't know why.
But I think anyway. Yeah, because we as the artists, we see all the flaws and everything on our stuff, especially. So we're like, oh, I don't like, in your head it doesn't look right, but then like to others, they're like, oh my gosh, this is such a pretty feed. Because I still do it with my feed. I'll be like, oh, it looks cluttered, or it looks like this. And then I get compliments, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm probably just in my head.
Yeah, you totally are.
That's normally what happens. So we've talked a little bit about like your products. Are you willing to share like what's the best, like what product has done the best for you so far out of these digital ones you've created?
I think I first thought it was going to be the Enneagram prints, but actually my Procreate brushes have kind of exploded, and those are pretty much like my top sellers in my shop right now.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Are you comfortable with sharing like how many people a day you think are downloading those?
Well, on like an average day, because I feel like, especially now, it's kind of gotten slow because it's like the dead quiet before holiday season.
Right.
Yes. But like when I first launched them, I remember, so I first just set like 100 in quantity, because I was like still in the mindset. I was like, well, these aren't going to sell out. And then I remember they sold out within like 30 minutes. Like the first time I like,
my gosh.
I like launched them, and I was like, and it's people were messaging me. They're like, they're sold out. And I was like, what? So then now I have to set them as like high. They've kind of slowed down a bit the more I release, just because I think I've already released like my main ones. I'm still working on some more, but like my Luke brush and my Barley brush are like my biggest, like the ones I recommend for like beginners or portraits and stuff. So those are the ones that are selling every day. But I've noticed, especially if I have some sort of sell, those will sell pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I've noticed that you'll like post occasional like 20% off my shop, like on Instagram. You'll kind of do like little flash sales. It's
crazy because sometimes like that's just what you have to do, because it skyrockets. Like I did that last week because it was being really, really slow, and I knew it was because of holiday season. So I hit 4K on Etsy. So I was like, oh, 25%. And then that just completely flipped it. But then on my end, that's why I like being digital, because it's really not affecting me as much if I was giving a big discount on like a physical product I had to ship out.
Right, exactly. Like you can do those little flash sales and you're still, I mean, that's like basically 100% margin besides what you're paying to Etsy.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I like. I'm able to give back a little more and give more sales than I would have when I sold like physical items.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So is there anything like in terms of going viral that you want to share like with our audience, or like if this were to happen to someone else, like any sort of like words of encouragement that you have?
I would say you just need to breathe first. Like Cami told me, these people that are following you, you don't owe them your full time. You need to take the time for yourself to like adapt, I guess. And that's one of the biggest things is I've had people call me this too, because in a way I feel like I've kind of become not just like my brand has become bigger, but I'm also kind of become like an Instagram influencer, like without even asking, because
Right.
of the mental health standpoint and the Christianity standpoint as well mixed in. And I think automatically when you gain those followers, a lot of people look at you that way too. And they really do look up to you. So I think you just need to look at it as a chance to really share what you want and not sweat being perfect, not sweat your feed. Just know that people are there because they want to be there. And that as long as you're being authentic and you're doing what's true to yourself, the people that love that will stay. And they are really there because they love what you do. Yes, to some people, the Enneagram is a trend and they're solely there for that. But a majority, I feel like I've made a connection with a lot of my followers. And that overall has kind of defeated all the negativity that has come out with my anxiety or pushing me to do stuff I don't want to do. I think at the end of it, it's been amazing to connect with the people that I have. So I think the biggest advice I can get is just be authentic and don't sweat the small stuff, because it sounds so cliche, but it's really true. You can't sweat the small stuff when you have a big following because it's going to happen. There's going to be people on there that aren't nice. There's going to be people who don't get it. But I feel like the negative, when you look at it, is way less than the amount of positive that it's brought.
Cool. Yeah, that's perfect to hear.
Yeah. So moving forward and in the future with your business, Audrey, do you have plans for the next year of new products you want to start reintroducing, or maybe leaning more into those Procreate brushes? What are you kind of thinking for the future for Brush and Barley?
This is hard because it's like different every single day. But
we totally get that. Don't worry.
I have some behind the scenes coming up of stuff I can't really talk about yet, but something I'm really excited about. That I'm partnering with somebody on that I think will kind of leverage my next stage. But I also really I think I've fallen in love with being like a teacher and standpoint to like people who look up to my art. And I really want to do some sort of, whether that's an iPad lettering course, a Procreate course. I really have fallen in love with teaching and showing what I know to an extent, because I don't want people to feel like I'm like, no, this is mine, I can't show you, because regardless, if people are going to copy me, they're going to copy me. I've kind of fallen in love with sharing this, because I remember when I was starting out, following those accounts that you just looked up to, and even just a little bit of them teaching me something I was forever grateful for. And that's something I've kind of fallen in love with from a teacher standpoint, if you should say. So I think that's something that I'm leaning more in towards for the next year or so.
Yeah, that's great. You can obviously make a lot of money doing educational content. I mean, that is why we have Biz Birthday Bash, not to make the money.
That's all we're here for.
That's all. But I think the reason we have this birthday bash is because we feel the same way as you. Like, we really want to be able to help out the community, and because like those digital content and digital resources continue to live on, and then you don't have to worry about like the physical products and elements. So we definitely really encourage you in that to like continue pursuing that. And, you know, see like what people want to learn from you. You could do like a little mini course like on your website, like build it in there, and people would easily pay for that 100%.
Right now, like this is such a unique time and such a unique cool point for your business, because you are an iPad letterer, or I don't know what they're called, iPad artist. I don't know. You utilize that as a tool. And yeah, it's like a totally new, you know, landscape of something you can kind of own that space. So doing educational content around that, I mean, it's just such a newer part of the market that we're just kind of now seeing it start up. So it's just going to be cool to see where that goes and see how you kind of own that. So I think you could totally do some really cool education based around that specifically.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited. Yeah, the amount of messages I get where people are like, I had no idea you did this on an iPad. I'm like, wow. I mean, that's good. But it just like, to me, it's like normal because I've had it for a few years now. So, but there's still people out there. Like, I have people message me that say, oh, I just bought an iPad and a pencil because of you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, that took me like a year to make myself buy. Like, good on you. Get it.
You're like, where's my affiliate revenue, Apple?
Hey, Apple, come on.
Yeah. I tried doing lettering like one time when I was in Best Buy, like on the iPad. It was like, I was like, okay, this is not for me. I am not good at this. Like,
I need to do some of my first stuff because it's so much harder than it looks. Like, I've had people misunderstand and think that like when they buy my brushes that their lettering is going to look like that. And I have to be very clear, like, no, it's all in the technique. It's going to look like how your handwriting is. It's just the physical tool of the brush.
It's not a font.
Yeah, actually, this is so funny that you brought that up too, because Design by Lainey just released this awesome blog post about like tools of the trade and how like the tools are not what makes the artist. Like, you can ask all day, like, what pen is that? What brush is that? But the moment you get it in your hands, like, it's up to you and what you do with it. Like,
yes,
they're not going to have, you're right, the same handwriting as you or the same calligraphy style as me or whatever, just because they're using the same tool that we use.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Anyway,
just like Hagrid said, the wand chooses the wizard. Or I don't know if he said that. But it makes sense in my head. Never mind. Let's end this.
I'm sorry. Wasn't that Ollivander, not Hagrid?
Okay, well, in my mind, I can hear it in Hagrid's voice, but maybe that's just me putting Hagrid into the scene because he's my favorite.
He's your favorite? All right, we need to have an argument about this later, but...
What? I love Hagrid. He's just like a big grizzly bear. Okay, we can have an argument later, but you're right. It definitely is Ollivander. I don't know where I got Hagrid from, but anyway, you guys... I don't know where I'm going with that. Sorry.
Anyways,
help me.
Yeah, I'll help you. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today and listening to our crazy selves interview Audrey about her experience going viral. Thank you so much, Audrey, for being here. And why don't you share real quick where people can find you on Etsy, Instagram, and your website?
Definitely. Well, first I want to say thank you because I literally almost died when I got this email because I've been binging your podcast like every single Tuesday since it came out. So my husband knew exactly who I was talking about when I told him, and he was like excited too because I make him listen to it in the car or wherever we're at.
I'm sure he loves it.
I was fangirling hard, so I'm so excited. But on Instagram, I'm at Brush and Barley, and then Etsy is etsy.com. It's just kidding. It's brushandbarley.etsy.com. And then I have Facebook. I'm not on Facebook as much, but it's pretty much just the same that's on Instagram, but that's facebook.com/brushandbarley. And then YouTube, my new YouTube is youtube.com/brushandbarley. And hopefully I'll be getting some more content by the time on this airs because I've been working on some stuff.
Yay,
well,
that's
good. This
awesome.
will be a good deadline for you, right?
Right.
We have a couple of weeks.
Yes.
And I was going to ask too, do you have a website or is that something you don't currently have?
It's brushandbarley.com.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Because
And,
that way,
that's
hopefully,
where
if people go there, they'll be able to find all the other links for your stuff too.
It's all LinkedIn, and then I have my chat box in there. That's the best way to get a hold of me rather than DMing me.
Okay.
I can imagine.
A reply sometimes.
Yes. Well, Audrey, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today and chatting all about your experience going viral. You're just so humble and so kind and passionate about it. And it's really cool to hear your side of the story, because I was just like freaking out for you. So you're like calm, cool, and collected. I would have been like, oh my God, you guys. But I like your approach a lot better. So we definitely were excited to have you on.
Yay. Well, thank you again so much.
You're welcome. All right. For those of you who are listening and enjoy our podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. We absolutely love seeing those and reading them. And by you doing that, it actually helps other artists and creativepreneurs find us as well. And then if you have any questions for us in the future that you would like to discuss, feel free to go to bizbirthdaybash.com/Q and cake, because we host Q&A sessions every 5 weeks on the podcast. So we will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Toodaloo, kangaroo.
Bye. Hey guys, Elizabeth here. Just wanted to hop in and talk about one of Cami and I's amazing resources called the A to Z directory. I know that all of us have thought at some point, how did she do that, or how did she make that? And maybe you just don't know where to start and how the heck to produce the product that you've dreamt up. Well, the A to Z directory is the missing puzzle piece in your biz, and it is actually a yearly membership that is a one-stop shop to every supplier you need to create anything from wedding invitations to coasters, mugs, napkins, greeting cards, and more. And we even have resources for drop shippers, where to produce a bunch of different things. And essentially, we just want to help you guys search less and create more. This resource is a really great deal at $147 per year. It also includes access to our private Facebook group, where you can ask any questions you have and get the answers you need at the drop of a hat, which is awesome. It's a really great community over there. So head over to bizbirthdaybash.com/directory to get more information and to sign up today.